Right guys, thought I'd do a different video. I've got a couple of kind of, gameplay overview videos that I want to do. But unfortunately, and comparison videos that I want to do, but unfortunately some of the comparison videos require me to, I need this other capturing device. Yeah, it'll be a long time before I get it, so unfortunately I can't do those comparison videos that I want to do. And as for the other videos, I think it's just a chance of getting round to putting them together, really. But I just thought I'd make this video. Right, so basically, I've got two different games here. There's all two. And, well, this one is a couple of different ones. Pretty good, actually, this. It's Planetoids and Missile. I think it's Missile, the one that I really like. But anyway, great game. And but basically, there's two different formats, storage formats here. So you've got the trusty cassette tape. Just put that on there. And with Zool, obviously this is an Amiga game, and this being a Spectrum game, we've got the floppy disk. Now, unfortunately, or whatever, I missed the whole home computer thing back in the early to late 80s, that whole 80s home computer period. I started on the Master System, went to the Game Boy, the SNES, and then the PlayStation. But I did get a Spectrum in the early 90s, but by that time the Spectrum had kind of, it had its day, and everyone was on to Sega and Nintendo machines. Yeah, but they used a different storage medium. They used cartridges, which on the whole was quite expensive compared to these two. Now, what am I going on about? Well, if I was around in the 80s and I was doing the whole home computer thing, if you was to ask me which out of these two formats was going to be the one to stand the test of time, which out of these two formats do you think is going to last the longest, is going to preserve the software that's on them, I would have gone for the floppy disk. I haven't really got any reasons for that, just because I would have, and even now, there's something about the floppy disk that just, it seems like it should be the better format, but it isn't. I know Steve Benway talked about this in one of his Friday talkies, I think it was a week or two ago now, and it was really enjoyable and hit a lot of good points, but yeah, if someone had if someone had asked me that question, which is the format out of these two that's gonna be the one that you could use in like 40-50 years time and it would still work, my money would have been on the floppy disk. But the floppy disk is actually the worst format. The amount of Amiga games I've got where the discs just do not work, and basically I've got the box but with just a blank disc that just doesn't want to work. So but I've got loads of these Spectrum cassettes and they, well, all but one work. Now the floppy disk, they are all the ones that I've come across that doesn't work, they're all corrupt. I don't know whether it's the Zool, for instance, I've got 2 of these Zool 2s and neither work. I got both the Zool 2s, each one was in a separate job lot. Going back years ago this was. So I ended up with 2 of these games and neither worked. It was a pain in the arse. And I don't know whether it's the fact that the magnetic disc inside is damaged or whether it's just that it's corrupt. However, these, which are probably older than this, all these work. All but one, that is. And the only reason why I've got one of these that doesn't work is that the cassette tape deck that you use on the Spectrum to play these, unfortunately it knackered up. It didn't want to work. Well, it didn't want to rewind. It'd play barely sometimes, but it wouldn't rewind the games or fast forward them, and I couldn't be asked to do that with my finger. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick this in my stereo downstairs. Now this stereo was like 20 years old and we hadn't used the tape decks in them for 20 years, and the reason why is they didn't work. Or as I found out, I was trying to remember why we didn't use the tape decks, but after 20 years it kind of, you forget. But anyway, so I stuck one of my Spectrum games in there. It was Transam by Ultimate Play the Game. One that I really didn't want to kind of just have to, not work and get destroyed, but whatever. I put it in there and I thought, well, yeah, I'll rewind it in this because obviously I can't rewind or fast forward in my Spectrum tape deck. And guess what? It chewed the fucking tape up. So I was really pissed off about that. So that's the only reason why it doesn't work. What I've come across with the tapes is that if you come across any of these that are just messed up and won't work, it's normally due to the tape deck, from what I've heard as well, than actually, the software on the magnetic tape getting getting corrupt. It always seems to come down to the actual tape deck, chewing up the tape or whatever. Whereas with these floppy disks, it's always because something to do with the magnetic disc inside. Either it just gets corrupt or through just storing it or transporting it, or just because it's shit. But anyway, I had an idea. Now Zool 2 doesn't work. I've got 2 of these games, but 2 Zool 2s that don't work. And what the idea that I had was, why don't I stick this in the Amiga, format this disc, then get an ADF and plonk it back on this disc. Then I would have, 2 working Zool 2 games, essentially restoring my disc. And I thought, that's a brilliant idea, why don't I just do that? So I went to do it, and I can't even format these discs. Again, I don't know whether it's because it's damaged or whether it's due to corruption and it just won't work. But these discs, whether they're corrupt or just damaged, they won't even format. And I tried quite a few different games, all of the games that just didn't work due to corruption or whatever, and none of them would format. So yeah, I can't even format these and stick an ADF back on them to restore them. Oh, that's really unfortunate. I thought it was a really good idea as well, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So yeah, that's this video, guys. Probably pointless story, but I think the tapes are still a really good old school storage format. And as for floppy disks that you'd think should be a lot better, well, they're not, they're worse.